What is the role of human geography in a changing world? We can all agree that the world around us is changing at arguably a faster rate than ever seen before, both in the physical landscape with issues such as rising sea levels, but more so within the human sector. Economically, we have seen the relocation of wealth and labour to emerging countries, but more significantly, cultural changes such as the increased focus on individuality and diversity, and also the development of social media. This begs the question, what is the role of human geography during these times? We hope to discuss this with you. To do this, we conducted an interview with Rebecca Sandover, which allowed us to focus in on how social media is driving the changing roles of geographers in this modern world we are living in. Space and the analysis of space is arguably one of the most important roles a human geographer can do. Some of the most influential modern geographers are the ones that have studied space, for example, David Harvey and Dorian Massey. After all, it can be confidently said that all geographical features and processes have a connection to the concept of space. The definition of space, as according to the Dictionary of Human Geography, is the location of events, places, people, and phenomena on the surface of the Earth. However, with the development of social media, as well as the increased digitalization of data, it could be argued that there has been the creation of a new dimension of space, a digital one. After reading Sandover, Kinsley, and Hinchlif's article, A Very Public Whole, The Anatomy of Online Issue Public, quotes such as, social media platforms such as Twitter become key elements of public space, thus demonstrating that this new dimension of space is not just on the surface of the Earth, but in fact in all places, both physical and virtual. This was verified when we interviewed Rebecca Sandover, who agreed that there had been a new virtual space created and the definition needed updating. At its most basic level, the role of human geography is not changed. It is still the analysis of the organisation of human activity and its relationships with the physical environment. However, the physical area of spatial studies will change. The spatial study region will become much larger, or even infinite, as there is now no longer the restrictions of a physical landscape. Instead, now it is an endless virtual dimension. The primary objective of activism is to bring about political or social change through vigorous campaigning to achieve a perceived greater good. In recent years, there has been a marked shift in activism, as increasingly people use social media and digital space as a platform to raise awareness of issues and join online campaigns to pressure authorities. In the wake of the 80s, with the advent of Web 2.0 and the dot-com boom, society became much more interconnected, thus allowing us to mobilize resources and spread information much more efficiently. It is important to consider that, although it is straightforward to create a social movement on social media, is this likely to result in an actual policy change? To this end, the ease with which current social movements form often fails to signal an organising capacity powerful enough to threaten those in authority. Massey's proposition of time-space compression refers to the notion that technological innovations allied significant spatial and temporal differences, which results in relative distances between places contracting. Digital tools offer instant connectivity and potentially huge audience to spread messages and campaigns, and social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter allow disparate groups to mobilize faster than ever. One of the most obvious advantages of digital activism today is that it is accessible during the global pandemic. Traditional methods of activism involve social contact in forms of mass gatherings and protests, and so being able to collect signatures through an online petition allows people to abide by the social distancing measures put in place by governments. In addition to this, digital activism also allows people to connect with a large community and potentially globalize campaigns. On the contrary, one can argue that in-person activism is much more disruptive and revolutionary, with much more pressure being put on authorities to cooperate and sympathize with protesters. Moreover, digital activism can be seen to bypass the hierarchies and rigidities associated with the older model of activism, which in turn can make it less respected by policymakers. The work of activist groups such as Extinction Rebellion and Greenpeace has led to the declaration of climate emergencies, which conveys how effective activism using non-violent civil disobedience can be. It is unlikely that online activism would have the same impact, as it is less disruptive and more discreet. Whilst digital activism is highly prevalent and is effective at raising awareness of societal issues, I would argue that in-person activism is more successful at achieving actual change and influencing government decisions. The digitalization of space, seen through social media, has shaped the way in which everyday current affairs take place. The example of how it has impacted the politics of the Middle East is drawn upon with specificity. Woolsfeld et al. Signifies the role social media has played in mobilizing collective action, with this being especially intense in the context of the Arab Spring, with Howard et al. Similarly concluding that social media played a central role in shaping political debates in the Arab Spring. Bloggers were able to use the internet and social media sites such as Twitter and Facebook to publish critical information of governments, particularly in Egypt, to help mobilize an uprising. Additionally, within the Middle East, technology and social media has facilitated the growing inclusion of women within political debates, enabling them to express their views without being confined to the gender stereotypes that surround women within a physical space. Social media has thus created a digital space where women can be equally heard, which further catalyzes the growing participation of women within political conversations. Additionally, social media helped disseminate footage and information of rallies, which were used by local activists to push their agendas, whilst also attracting a worldwide media audience. Bruns et al. Specifically highlights how the flow of information previously mentioned helped overcome geographic boundaries, enabling the global connection of people through political discussion. And so, whilst the true extent of the impact social media has had on politics is beyond the scope of this presentation, the brief examples highlighted demonstrate that social media has and will continue to shape current political politics. Sandover argues that there will be an increased need for human geographers in the future, as human geographers have a wide skill set in contrast with other scientists or social scientists. She believes that human geographers can understand and look at the world through many different lenses and framings, such as the use of historical and critical lens, or by using a social cultural lens. Human geographers are in a strong position to take forward research and understanding how society, such as global change and climate change, is in a good place. There will also be a rise in digital geography, such as GIS, Global Information Systems, will become even more important in conjunction with future methodologies. Peets conveys that social scientists, and in particular human geographers, are in a better position to interpret the more scientific-based research. As physical geographers and natural scientists can develop findings of the world, human geographers can help them understand these findings concerning wider society. On the other hand, social media and smartphone technology make the profession incredibly challenging. People can conduct basic research and investigations through social media to conduct their non-academic research. But at the end of the day, academic skill sets are still very valid, and human geographers are particularly useful here, which is reflected in the popularity of the subject at university and at school level. Social media has been instrumental in the acceleration of time-space compression, because these platforms enable individuals to form and sustain connections across the world more easily. This has enabled greater awareness of issues because we are able to understand different social phenomena by observing different individuals and groups and their experiences through social media. Social media has particularly changed human geography in terms of acknowledgement of inequality. For example, the death of George Floyd in May 2020 sparked outrage worldwide, highlighting racial injustice within America as a result of systemic racism. Social media facilitated a widespread awareness, enabling individuals all over the world to express anger and show support, resulting in protests in over 60 other countries. Social media is of particular importance when authority fails an individual or group. It can be used to generate a further response. It can also be argued that social media has led to an increase in lay expertise. Lay expertise is used to describe those who develop specialized knowledge on a subject without having an academic education in that field. It has enabled non-academics to undertake basic forms of research and investigation into specific topics. This has made human geography more accessible, opening up the subject to more people, and perhaps increasing the levels of informal research within the subject. So, overall, what is the role of human geography in a changing world? Well, the simple analysis of data will not change. However, with increased digitalization of data, as well as the presence of social media, the collection of data will be different. More will be done from home, but that will not reduce the need for human geographers. In fact, it will increase the need as more data becomes readily available online. Thanks very much for listening.